Hello, it's been a while since I've recorded anything, so here we are, we're on the ground at London City. I'm about to do a flight in the BAE 146, which was re-released today on the 23rd of September 22 by Just Flight. So this is the brand new version of the BAE 146. Apparently it has some upgraded stuff in the cockpit, which we'll have a look at. We'll just, go and try the plane out. We're going to fly from London City over to, if we have a look at a little nav map, we're going to go to Rotterdam, and we're going to do a very simple route, primarily because we are going to fly this in its original configuration. So I'm going to go inside the cockpit and switch off the flight management computer, because the earlier versions of the BAE 146 didn't have a flight management computer. Okay, so we're going to get inside. So we'll have a quick look around. As you can see, it looks pretty much the same. I'm guessing we'll find some things that are different along the way. Obviously this is the primary difference. I saw somebody mention earlier today they couldn't get rid of the tablet, and that's absolute rubbish. You just click on the little pad down there and that works the same as it always has. If you're not aware, in the 146 you can remove these pads as well. The plunger down there makes the yoke appear and disappear, if you were wondering. So we can put all this stuff back. This is basically a coffee holder, if you weren't aware. It's a bit odd, but anyway, I'm not sure if we can open this. I don't think we can now. So what do we get in the tablet now? We get an operational flight plan if we've got one, which I haven't. You get a map, which is, it's okay, but it's not great. So I don't think I'll be bothering with that. It's got Navigraph integration if you want it. It's got all the normal stuff you had in the aircraft that was here before, and we're going to go and get rid of the FMS navigation option in there. So if we look around now, we've got nothing on that panel down there now, which is good because I don't want anything there. Okay, so we're going to leave aircraft is cold and dark on the ground, so that's good for us. You can write notes in here now. It's got checklists, which we're not going to bother with. It's got a top of descent calculator, which we're not going to bother with, and it's got some settings to do with the configuration of the tablet itself. So we'll do away with the tablet and we'll go and get the airplane started and go and fly it over to Rotterdam just to see how things go. So the first thing we do, I'm going to be using a paper checklist, by the way, that I've printed out. I'll put a link to it in the notes of the video if I remember. If I don't remember, comment and say, where's the blooming checklist? Yes, so and so. Okay, so Control and 7 takes us up to the overhead panel. We need to turn BAT 1 and BAT 2 to on. Now I'm just trying to remember where everything is. The batteries are up here. It's months since I've done this. Batteries 1 and 2 to on. Then we press Control and 8. And on the far right we go for the nav lights and turn to high int. No smoking to auto, so that's the center section. Cabin to armed, which is the center position for that switch as well. On the far left we turn the yaw dampers masters 1 and 2 to on, which is done. Autopilot master to on. Avionics masters A and B to on, so basically that whole row. Anti-skid and lift spoilers, anti-skid to on. Lift spoilers, yellow and green to on. Overhead, press Control and 7 again. We look for the electric section, which is in the second column, so here it is. Bus tie AC and DC to auto. So bus tie AC and DC to auto. Standby inverters and standby generator to arm. So that's that done. APU generator to on, so that's down here, and you have to do that twice to make it go on. Okay, that's page 1 of the 4-page checklist. Fuel in the first column, pumps left inner to on. The reason for that is that's going to provide the fuel for the APU. So in the third column we master switch to start, which is here. Lower panel, flight deck emergency lights to armed, that's down here. On the aft console we press Control and 4. Yaw dampers to on. So you click on the button on the yaw dampers and they light up. Left and right side panels. We open the oxygen, so we press F and we can turn the oxygen valve on, and that one as well. So that sound is the oxygen pumps, I'm guessing. Okay, so back overhead. Center tank transfer to auto. So that's somewhere over here. I'm starting to lose my way. Here we go. Center tank transfer to auto. Ice protection. Ice detector to on. So ice protection's down here. So that's the one behind the switch. And close the switch again. Then on the main panel, click on the flip chart and you will see it configures the V-speeds. Flight directors to on. So we press F and we go and turn on the flight directors. Nav 1 goes to on, so we zoom in on Nav 1 and we turn it to on. We press the on button. It should come on in a few seconds. There it goes. Then on the front pedestal, press Control 5. Do we have to switch on? No, Nav 2 is not a digital system, so we come down to Control 5 and comm radios go to on, so we just turn the switch on both of the comm radios. That's all done. So at this point, if we had an FMC, we would do it. We could go and program the nav radios, I guess. So the first radio radio VOR station we're flying towards is Clacton 114.55. So if we jump back up into the pilot seat, and we'll go and notice on the nav radio on the 146 you can either do the standby frequency or the active frequency directly, which is quite cool. 11455. Okay, so that's done. Master control panel. Is there anything else we need to do on the master control panel? We can set a target altitude for later on, so we're immediately going to climb for 10,000 feet. We'll probably fly the whole flight at 10,000 feet. We're not going that far. Actually, we'll go a little bit above so we don't run into any overspeed concerns. We can arm that altitude, so we will level out when we get there automatically. What next? Control 7. Seatbelts to on. So we're telling people to sit down, which is primarily saying to them we're going to start the engines in a minute, so you better go and put your seatbelts on. Beacon lights go to on. So that's back overhead. Beacon lights go to on, so that's warning anybody on the ground we're about to start the engines. At this point we would do the pushback. We don't need to push back, we're going to taxi straight out from the parking here at London City. So back overhead. Fuel pumps, all of them go to on. Engines, start master goes to on. And then we select each engine in turn and we start the engine. And if we look down here, you will see the numbers coming up for engine number 1 first. Oh, if I do this. Oh no, so I've done the wrong one. We'll do them in opposite order then. So there we go, it's gone past 20, which was about the same time as I flicked the switch. So we wait for it to stabilise. Normally you do number 4 first, and I've done number 1 first. I'm not sure why I did number 1 first. That's lack of practice, I think, is the thing going on there. So then, yeah, there we go. So let's take the starter back off at number 4. And we can see, we'll do things the right way around, shall we? I always make mistakes in these videos, and it's down to lack of prep and leaving the mistakes in. So yeah, normally you would start on number 4 and work your way across. I've started on number 1 for some reason known only to myself. So you know when you can start the next engine, because the lights switch off underneath the engine selector knob. So we'll go for number 4 now, shall we? So these will go back out when the ignition has finished its sequence. So now we'll see engine number 4's numbers coming up. When this gets to 20 on the N2, is that N2 or N1? Let's zoom in. N1, sorry. When it gets to 20 on N1, you can introduce fuel basically. And then you see the gas temperature goes up, and the N2 number starts to climb as well, as obviously as it picks up speed. So N1 is the gas turbine, N2 is the turbofan. So if we go and look back overhead, you'll see these lights go out in a moment, all on their own. There it goes. So we can do the next engine, number 3, start. So we're waiting for the N1 number on engine number 3 to get to 20, and then we can flick the switch on it. There we go. So you'll see the gas temperature go up, there it goes, and the N2 number is coming up as the gas turbine accelerates. Should we turn this on so it's got something on the screen so it's not quite so dead? It doesn't actually work yet, but I think in a future version this will radar essentially, so you'll have a weather radar and be able to see other aircraft around you. Okay, so let's have a look overhead. Okay, we can do number 2 now. So, oops, engine number 2, start. So waiting for N1 to come up to 20. 18, 19, and introduce fuel, and off it goes. Okay, so engines are running. When the lights go out, we turn this back to off, turn the start master back to off. So we just wait for those lights to go out. I don't think that's very realistic somehow. This is London City, and an AI 747 has just landed. It's another real person. This is one of those perennial challenges. Can you land at London City? Yeah, that's a human. Okay, start master to off. Okay, control 7. In the electric column we turn generators 1 and 4 to on now. Pack 1 and 2 to on. Engine air all go to on. In the overhead panel, brake fans go to auto now. That's over here. Hydraulics, all of the pumps basically. So we got engine 2 pump to on, engine 3 pump to on. And we're on to the final few bits. All the heaters go to on. So let's just have a quick look around. So we've got engine air on. In the ice protection, there we go. So on, and on. We are basically ready for taxi at this point, so we can go and check the panels. Parking brake is on, brake fan select is on, air set on ground, that's fine. Okay, so let's go and move the flaps to takeoff position. We'll release the parking brake. And we are good to go. Just out of interest, let's get this direction to this VOR programmed in as well. We want the course to be 63 degrees. So let's go and turn the nav1 course to 63. We've got a crosswind today. Oh, I haven't removed the chocks. We will need the tablet for that. We go to aircraft and we remove the chocks. And we can put the tablet back away. I thought, why aren't we going anywhere? Obviously because we didn't do a pushback, it kind of doesn't put you in the mindset to be using chocks. So while we're taxiing out, we'll also go and turn on the thrust modulation system over here. We can run a test on it, but I don't think we really need to. When you press the test button, it lights up all of the lights on it in turn. Just make sure, in the real aircraft obviously it's just checking everything's in place. So let's have a look from outside. So we're going to roll down to the end of the runway and spin round. So you can see London in the distance. So we're taking off in the other direction than the city, even though there's a small amount of wind. It looks like the wind has slowly turned, actually, looking at the windsock. We are going to be going into the wind. So we're just going to synchronise the engines for the moment. We're going to roll down to the end and spin the plane round. It turns around almost, or inside its own length. You just need to turn slowly, that's all. It's designed for operating in very tight airspace, or airstrips I should say. Okay, so we're going to go for max, oh, we'll go for takeoff thrust actually. Okay, gear up. We are now going to go for max continuous thrust. Raise the flaps. Trim the climb. Okay, switch the autopilot on. We are going to go for vertical speed mode, which will hopefully hold our vertical speed. And we will go for lateral. Oh no, lateral navigation won't work. We'll go for glide slope. Interesting. Okay, VOR lock should work. There we go. You can tell I haven't flown in for a while, can't you? Having to hunt around for buttons. So we're climbing about 1,000 feet a minute, or hopefully about 1,000 feet a minute. We've got VOR, vertical speed mode on the autopilot. We've got VOR lock, so it's attaining now the 63 degrees that we asked for out towards Clacton. We're just coming up to 250 knots, so I'm going to be a little bit careful about not overspeeding on the climb out. So just easing the throttle back. We'll go for sync mode now. Because I'm having to actually control it. We're not just going for the maximum climb possible. Should we have a look outside? We should have had, we're below 10,000 feet, aren't we? So we should really have the landing lights on, so people can see us. Again, something I did that wasn't procedurally correct. Just shows you if you don't practice things, you become rusty very quickly. I do like the 146. So I'd been hearing horror stories about frame rates, but I'm not seeing anything of the sort. It's lovely and smooth. Should we get rid of that panel out of the way? And that one over there. Actually, I wonder if we can get rid of the co-pilot. Is that an option in here? Yeah, there we go. So I actually really like flying this thing. I mean, the thing everybody is shouting about, obviously, is the tablet, because it's got some new toys in it. But I don't have a Navigraph subscription, or not yet, so that's not of much consequence to me. The moving map, it works, and it doesn't seem to affect frame rate, so I'm not sure what everybody was on about with that. It is very slow to update though, but that's down to the service provider that's providing the maps. Yeah, and it's Open Topo, and they're one of the slowest that there is, so I'll just turn it off. Okay, should we increase our rate of climb? Let's see what this thing can do. So if we go for max continuous thrust, you can see the engines coming up here. So we'll come off of vertical speed, we'll trim it a bit steeper. So we'll go for 2,000 feet a minute and see if it will hold it. We crept over 250. Yeah, it's going to do it, look. So let's go for 3,000 feet a minute. And hold that on the vertical speed. And it's still accelerating just about. Let's go for 4,000 feet a minute then. So we're just looking at the vertical speed here. This is as much a test flight as anything, isn't it? It's struggling, look, it won't hold at if I try that again, yeah, if you go to vertical speed mode it drops to 3,000 feet a minute. That seems to be about its limit. That's a shame. That must be in the guidebook somewhere. I just haven't looked. So we'll come back a little bit on the throttle stance because we're over speeding. Or for the altitude we are. Just come off the thrust to bring the speed back under control. Open the thrust back up. So we are approaching the target altitude. 10,500 feet, going for 12, so we should see the vertical speed start to drop off in a bit. Let's just check the volume levels, make sure you can hear me. Yeah, you can hear me over the aircraft, which is good. I might make the airplane a little bit noisier just so you get to hear the sounds. So the klaxon you heard there was us getting within 900 feet of the target altitude. So you can see, yeah, the vertical speed is dropping off now as we get towards our cruise altitude for today's flight. So let's have a look on the map and see where we are. So we're flying dead on, look, on the line over to Clacton. Now we are going to fly across the channel to COA. I'm just going to come off the throttle before we start to overspeed the airframe, so you can see we're getting close to it up here. because we've levelled out now, of course. Okay, so COA 110.05. So we can change the 110 on the secondary frequency, or the standby frequency, 110.05, and we will switch that when we get close. So we've still got 13 miles to go to Clacton. I'm just going to open the engines up a little bit. So we're actually bleeding speed off. So now we're above 10,000 feet, we should take the landing lights off, which I haven't done. So that's over here, but we leave everything else on. Okay, so everything is looking pretty good so far. Should we have a wander around the aeroplane while we're flying along and see what they've done? Oh wow, I think they may have improved the internals. It's still quite low resolution around the door area, but I don't really see a problem with that, because you're really focused on the cockpit, aren't you? And this is all really nicely modelled. Okay, so we're coming up to 5 miles to Clacton. So let's go and change our course to 108 degrees. So we'll switch over, as well as change our course. So 108. And we'll switch frequencies. So it will immediately, it's going left. What it was trying to do is take 108 degrees into the VOR, so it started to swing left to get onto that track. Obviously it's not going to make it, and now it's correcting and going 108 degrees to the next waypoint, and you can see it's 88 miles away on the distance measuring equipment down here. Just to give us some reference to Clacton, we could put 11455 onto nav2. So we've got 11455. Now there's a switch you have to flick, isn't there, to make this work, and I can never remember how this works. There we go. Somebody will obviously comment on the YouTube video and tell me what I'm missing here, but I've completely forgotten how to switch on nav2. So we'll come back to that. Okay, anyway, we've got quite a long way to go. We've got 80 miles till the next waypoint, so I'm going to take it, kind of pause the video at this point, and I'm going to go and look up the nav2 instruction, and then I'll come back and I'll be able to tell you straight away how to operate that. Okay, so we're pretty much gaining the line now. You can see it's weaving around trying to get that 180 degree line. It will get it eventually. So I'm going to pause the video recording at this point, and I'll be back in a moment. Ah, I can't pause it because of the method of recording I'm using. I'm trying different things out in OBS at the moment. So, you've got me with you for a little while. So what I'll do, I'll leave it on the outside view. I guess what we could do for the purposes of this demonstration, what have I done? Why is this not following glide slope? Oh, of course we switched frequencies and glide slope lock switched off. Sorry, VOR lock. I'll get the terminology right eventually, won't I? So while I was meddling around, I turned the entire navigation system to RNAV, which would be the mode you would use with the FMS. And of course that disabled. Look, I can show you here. Look, if I switch this, it switched off VOR lock. So it's a good one to know about, actually. Okay, so let's have a play with this and see if we can figure this out on the way. We just had to turn it on. I suddenly remembered. So you turn the middle switch on nav2 and that turns it on. The reason we are interested in it is we want 5.5, don't we? The reason we are interested is we can then point this back away from ourselves to see what direction Clacton is from us. So there we go. But more interestingly to us is we get the DME, so we can see the distance growing between us and Clacton. Whereas on this one we see the DME is closing down, or distance measuring equipment. So it's just intercepting the line again. Now we've got the navigation system on the right system. So you've probably noticed in the BAE 146 there's this split section here. All this means is if we want the aircraft to use nav1 if we want the autopilot to favour nav1, we can turn it to nav1, and both nav instruments will reflect nav1. If we want them both to reflect nav2 and to use nav2 on the autopilot, we switch it to nav2. If we want the autopilot to favour nav1 but also be able to use nav2 independently, you put it on split mode. Yeah, so it allows you to do triangulation basically on a map. So the aircraft is flying to nav1, but you can use nav2 independently. Clouds are looking quite cool, aren't they? 60 miles to go. So yeah, although it seems like I'm hunting around, which I absolutely am, I think it's quite valuable for people to see the problem-solving kind of routine of figuring out how things work and trying to remember. It's so long since I've flown this, and I'd rather leave the mistakes in. I know I watch some of these professional YouTubers doing videos, and they cut out. You suddenly see the video stop and start, and you think, yeah, you just did something. But I always leave everything in. It's no fun if you take all of the mistakes out, because then nobody learns. So it's saying ice is detected. If you remember when we took off, we put on the ice protection. We could go and turn on the anti-ice as well. So it's just telling us we've switched the anti-ice on. So 50 miles to go. Right, I'm going to go and make a quick coffee while we're en route. I'll leave the camera up in the corner of the cockpit so we can see what's going on, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, I'm back and I have coffee and the weather has come in, but the ice has gone away, so we're going to turn off the ice and there we go. And it's absolutely hammering down with rain as well. How are we doing in terms of the journey? 33 miles to go to the waypoint. So if we go and have a look, there's our navigation snafu while I was busy flicking switches and didn't realise I'd switched off VOR lock. So we are going to leave Koa on a course of 44 degrees. This will be an interesting test actually, to see how it handles. If I put 44 in now, I would expect the plane to go right and then left. We won't make the plane struggle. We'll go to heading mode. I think that'd be the nicer way to do it when we get to Koa. So we'll get our heading ready at 44 degrees, so you can see the marker here on the HSI. So let's spin that round to 44. That gives us a good marker then for where we're turning for. So when this gets down to 0, or gets close to 2 miles to go, 3 miles to go, we'll switch to heading mode and let the plane turn itself left, and we'll begin our descent, because we want to be above 2,000 feet at Helho, but that's 40 miles to do it, and we're only at 12,000 feet, so we've got to lose 10,000 feet. We can do it gently. And obviously we'll have to keep an eye on speed. We are getting worryingly fast again. So just coming off the throttle a little bit. We're still on sync mode on the TMS. So TMS is thrust modulation system, if you've never seen it. It's kind of a forerunner of auto throttles. It allows you to have various pre-programmed modes as takeoff mode, maximum continuous thrust. I forget what TGT is. It's the max temperature mode basically. You can choose which throttle stick the engines will follow and which engine output they'll follow. You can also use sync mode, where if you use one of the levers, the other engines will synchronise with that lever, but they'll only do it within a certain range. If you move a stick a long way, it will give up, and you'll get arrows lighting up on engines 1 to 4. Okay, we're 17 miles away from the turn. We're looking good. We've got ice detected again. So if you wanted, you can use engine anti-ice as well. So we can notice we lost engine power then. That's important. When you switch on the anti-ice measures, you lose engine power. Okay, 11 miles to go until we get to the turn. If you have a look on the map, you can see we are approaching. Now, what's the full name of this? It's the Costa VOR. So at this point, if we wanted to, we could go and change the course to 44 degrees. And again, because we are not at the VOR yet, the plane would go right and it would try to fly across here to get on the 44 degree track. So we are going to let it get to 5 miles and then we'll go to heading mode. Ready? Remembering we have pre-programmed the heading to point this way. So let's go for heading mode. So the plane's going to start turning left. We'll also start descending. We'll come down to 10,500 feet. So we've set that as a target. And we go vertical speed. Oops, sorry, we trim down first. So we're coming down at 500 feet a minute or thereabouts. Vertical speed mode is on. We can come off the throttles gently. So we're going downhill now. So we're going to keep an eye on that airspeed. It will start to creep up probably. And we'll set the course to the runway direction now, which is 56 degrees, and we'll set the standby VOR frequency to 109.1 for the ILS. Actually, if we're flying heading mode, we could go on, just set the active frequency. So let's go to active 1091 and 56 degrees. So our course will be 56. Remember, we're on heading mode, so we can do what we like with the course. And 109.10. That's correct, isn't it? Yeah. So notice it hasn't picked it up yet. So we could tune the second one in to the big VOR over here, 110.40. So if we go 10, what was it again? 110.40. And that will give us 48 miles. Yeah, and we know the airport's a few miles before that, so we'll call it 45. So we know how far we've got to get down to our target altitude now. So coming down to 10,500 feet, we need to come down to 250 knots. So we'll come off the throttles and watch the speed bleed off over here. I mean, we could expedite this by using the air brakes. It's got pretty savage spoilers on the back of a BAE 146. The tail splits in half and clamps itself out into the airflow. Okay, so let's start our descent. We're going to go then for 3,000 feet. And we will just continue on with vertical speed mode, to be honest. We're doing 500 feet a minute at the moment. We're wanting to lose 7,000 feet. So that's 21 minutes. That's going to take too long, isn't it? So let's go down at 1,000 feet a minute. So I'm just pushing the nose down with trim. Then we press vertical speed to hold on to that. And we keep an eye on the indicated airspeed to see if we need to adjust the engines. Should be good. So this is where maths comes in with the older aeroplanes. We don't get the green banana line on a flight display to show us when we're going to get to the target altitude. So you basically need to look at the chart, figure out the distance, the speed you're doing, and figure out if you're going to get to your target altitude in time. So at some point soon we should pick up the ILS frequency, it'd be a while yet, because we're still 37 miles away. This weather is going to make it interesting, isn't it? At least we'll have something to do. To actually, to do the navigation part of this flight. Let's have a look on the map. So we're a little bit to the right. So let's go and turn the heading 5 degrees to the right. So 30 miles to run, down to 7,000 feet, still descending at 1,000 feet a minute, on about 250 knots. So we're going to slow down ever so gently. Let's go and turn the anti-ice off. TMS is still on sync mode, which is good. Look outside, see what's going on. And we've just picked up the ILS, 26 miles out. Well, we haven't got the glide slope yet, but we've got the localizer. So localizer is your lateral position, so we're off to the right of the centerline beam. So we're going to turn left across it. And intercept it before we get there. "23 miles to go, we're down to 6,000 feet. We should see the marker start to slide across anytime soon, if I've got this right. Just check our frequencies. 109.1 was the ILS. Here comes the marker. Perfect. We have also got the glide slope now. So if we wanted to, at this point, we can turn on VOR lock and glide slope lock. So we could at this point lessen our descent rate. Okay, so the glide slope lock is trying to dive at the floor. Why is that happening? Interesting. I'm going to throw the spoilers out. I'm interested now to see why it's doing that. Let's go for altitude hold. Okay, we're back to under 250 knots, which is good. We're going to slow down now anyway, we're only 14 miles away. You'll probably find that it won't capture the glide slope unless it's in altitude hold mode first. It'll be something like that. Okay, so let's get the landing lights back on. And let's see, we're just about to come through the glide slope. So is it going to capture it? So keep an eye on that vertical speed needle. We're in altitude hold mode at the moment. down to 180 knots. So we're going to drop the gear. And it started descending. So it's doing it. Okay, so first level of flaps. And we're going to slow down now to 160. Nine miles out. We're right on the centre line. In fact, I'm going to, instead of letting this fly it all the way in, let's do it ourselves now. So, autopilot off. I have control.
2500.
Let's slow down a bit. The spoilers really kick the nose up. The nose go with the flaps. That's crazy. So I'm just getting that back under control.
Think rate.
There we go. Off to the left slightly. So we're just turning across the runway direction to come back. A little bit low. The engine's up slightly. It's pretty stormy. We're being thrown around. Three miles to run. We're off to the right now, so we're going to turn back left.
1000.
So in the real world, this is where you get to a decision height and decide if you're going to go for it or not. Which would normally be about 300 or 400 feet. I think I guess it varies between operator to operator. So we're just focusing on the localizer and the glide slope and the airspeed, staying inside safe kind of limits. So you can see the ground just about now outside. Hopefully we're going to see the runway very soon. And we're...
Pull up. Pull up.
Ooh, that was a good time for it to stutter. There's the runway lights right in front of us.
Fifty, 40, 30, 20, 10.
We were being pushed massively sideways then. Okay. Flaps can come up. And we taxi away. That was a bit more eventful than we needed it to be, but with live weather you never know what you're going to find, and I always like to kind of figure out what's going to happen. So part of the reasoning for doing this and to fly it in manually is we were talking to a real commercial aviation pilot recently, and you see all these guys in the simulator switching on approach mode and auto land and all the rest of it. It's very rare that the real pilots use any of the automated systems beneath about 10,000 feet. You know, they tend to fly it by hand. And most of the reasoning for that is to keep their skills and practice up. Because if you only get used to pressing buttons, like an awful lot of the simulator crowd, then you forget how to fly a plane. And you can see I was incredibly rusty because I've not flown very often, just for a few weeks. So it just shows how quickly those skills are lost. Didn't help that we had turbulence on the way in. You saw the nose diving around from time to time. I was kind of having to manhandle the plane back onto the glide slope from time to time. Just waiting for parking. Oh, I can see some aeroplanes in the distance now. We are getting there. This weather is horrendous, isn't it? Oh well, we got a bit of a graphical bug and it's rendering things much more brightly than they should be. Sure, we'll look from outside. I'll tell you something I forgot about again. We didn't turn the landing lights back off, but we have now. Park nose to nose with this other aeroplane, and then I'm going to stop the video because you don't really want to sit and watch me turn all the switches back off in the reverse order that I switched them on, do you? Okay, so parking brake on. And there you go, the 146 that got updated today. I think it's fantastic. It's such a good fun plane to fly. I need to turn some of those lights off, but I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that, mistakes and all. So you just, like I said, it just goes to show you get rusty really fast. So it is worth going and refreshing your memory and flying a plane you haven't flown several times in a row for, you know, to build up that muscle memory and to get back on the checklist and to remember the things, I mean, where things are, the way an aircraft operates, and what you have to do. You saw my struggle with Nav 2 because I'd just forgotten that the switch in the middle switches it on. Then we had the mistake with the VOR where I switched to RNAV mode. Yeah, so yeah, a few things went wrong, but they are all things that you learn from. That's the important thing, I think. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.